Hello, 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 crossroads, witches, and other interesting magical beings. Woo! 2025! I know for some of us we're like, ugh. It's up to us to be the change. And this year is going to be a good year because we're going to make it happen like that. And with that, I'm going to talk about the Folk Witches Wheel of the Year. I don't know how to say it. Our seasonal celebrations. A lot of times, pagans, Wiccans, witches, other interesting magical beings are presented with the Wiccan year Wheel of the Year as if all pagans, all magic folk embrace that. Not true. We don't. And especially within the folk witch and also within traditional witchcraft communities, you find that we have a slightly different calendar than what you find within the Wheel of the Year. And this video was inspired by a beautiful young witch who was telling me that, they're just not inspired by the Wheel of the Year. And I was like, make your own wheel, And it was just a whole new concept. And we ended up having a chat. And of course, y'all know I got notes on this chit chat. Let me move here. I might make a noise with the microphone. That microphone just kicks my bum some days. All right, so we're going to talk about, seasonal celebrations do not have to fit into someone else's calendar. Whether you align with solstices, harvest, or just the cycles of nature, the seasons of nature around you, what it's about is connection. The traditional Wheel of the Year is beautiful, but it doesn't work for everyone. Like I said earlier, some of us, I'm just not inspired by it. It doesn't fit me or where I live. As a folk witch, it's about connecting to our dirt, our region, our community, connecting to the trees that are in my backyard, listening to the birds that are singing, when are the flowers blooming. And that doesn't work on the Wheel of the Year. Many folk witches work within solstices, equinox. They also do personal family feast days. They may do god and goddess feast days. It's, again, your schedule to create. And I pulled out one of my books because, y'all, this book, my poor book, this cute little book of mine is literally falling apart. I gotta duct tape it back together. Needless to say, I've had it for a couple of years. But I went back through and looked at my book to what am I celebrating? Because when somebody asked me this, I was like, I don't know. When the wind blows right, when the sun is shining just enough you can feel it. And so a year of celebrations, a folk witch's year of celebrations. And this is my calendar, all right? Please be inspired by it. Use it if you want to. But more importantly, make it yours. What are your days, all right? And what I found for me is in January 1st, the new year, all right, is when I had written down, and one of my notes was daring beginnings. And I loved that. I started thinking about it, and I was like, you're right. Sometime in January, I will sit down and I may write them on paper. I may write on bay leaves. There's no telling what I decide. Birch bark I did one year. I write down my accomplishments. I write down what was I most proud of last year. What did I do that made me really happy? All right. I don't believe in resolutions. I think that's some bogus BS designed to almost set you up to fail so that in 2 weeks, whatever you said your New Year's resolution, you're no longer doing. I'm going to walk 5 miles every day. And in 2 weeks, you're like, I ain't walking nowhere. But what I do believe is it's a time to reflect and to see all that I've accomplished so that it can inspire me to be daring, to be adventurous, to look upon the next year as what do I get to do this year? What are my accomplishments? And I will typically sit, I write them down, and then I sit there with a candle and burn them. Read them out loud, give it up to the universe, just like also as a way of like letting my ancestors know that I'm celebrating what I've done and how very important that is for me. And then I noticed in my book, the next thing that I like to do a lot is in March, spring equinox. And I wrote down blossoming energy. And for me, this is when I bless my seeds. I start planting things. I make sure sometime in March, around spring equinox, I will go up to the store, nursery, wherever, give me some little flowers, bring them home, and I plant them either in the ground or in a flower pot. And as I'm planting them, I'm speaking out loud, what I want, the growth I want, the goals that I have for this coming year. And it's that a lot of times talk about plant a seed. And it's not just planting a seed, it's planting your intentions in the dirt. And again, this is a very simple ritual. If you want to do a big elaborate ritual and have some sort of mystery play, doing spring equinox, it's also the time of Inanna, so you could get all up into girlfriend's energy during that time if you want to. But it's very much for me about planting my intentions and making sure I get my hands in the dirt. All right, my other date that I noticed was in June, celebrating abundance. And this is summer solstice, June 21st. This is when we change from the light half of the year to the dark half of the year. For many folks, this is a very big shift of energy in June. And this is that time of abundance. This is where the sun is shining at its brightness. This is the time to have a picnic and invite your friends over and sit under a shade tree and eat little terrible cookies that are so delicious and so bad for you. And this is, where I'm that altar with all of the beautiful flowers. I actually will walk around my yard and into the woods, and I will go pick flowers, and that's what I decorate my altar with for that month. And like I said, it's about honoring the light, honoring growth, the abundance of summer, and that I'm a part of it. And how very important that is for me personally. The other date that I noticed that every year, and I also want to sort of give the caveat that your calendar changes, all right? You're not sitting anything in stone. But for me, the other was in September, which is fall equinox, was honoring the harvest. And this is a time where I start looking back on the year, thinking about all the things that I've done. What accomplishments have I done? What do I need to work on finishing up for the year? We're getting ready to go into the time of the dead. Do I need to do anything to get it? To finish up any projects. And I love to do a good harvest stew to get local vegetables. I go up to the farmer's market. I get all these vegetables. I just put everything in the stew. I put all the veggies in the stew that you're supposed to. And then I put a couple of surprises in there too. But I like doing a big harvest stew. And here at the Barn Witches, this is where we have that big feast night, where we are getting to enjoy the abundance and just that community that, look at all, listening to everyone else's stories. I think it's really important during this time. And the other time, which is, I did not find surprising when I went through my book, but it is November. Towards the middle of November, I always feel the season of the dead. And in the book, I had the quiet of shadows is what I wrote down. And this is about getting ready for ancestral work, knowing that the season of the dead is coming. And the season of the dead is exactly that. It's a season. For some folks, it comes closer to that fall equinox, and it holds all the way to winter solstice, meaning that it'll go from September 21st to December 21st. For others, it may be closer to Samhain, to Halloween, where they start feeling the time of the dead. They may only do a day or the two. For others, like myself, sometimes towards the middle of November, towards the end, the wind blows right. And I'm like, ooh, the dead awaken up. It's time to prepare. I can feel it. And I start, shifting my space. And thinking about how I want to honor the dead. How am I going to celebrate the dead this year? It's very much, every year I do it a little different. Some years I may decide that I'm doing a complete altar of remembrance for local people that, from my area. Other times I'm all about family. I know the first year of COVID, my altar was for the Anima Sola, which is the souls basically that have passed without knowing they're dead. It's the recently deceased and things like that. And I really felt my altar needed to be a reflection. And when names were being said, I remember I was writing down names. Like the Chinese doctor was the first one to die of COVID. I had wrote his name down and put it on my altar. When other notable people were passing, I was putting it on the altar. And that year for me was very much in the moment. We were in the season of the dead. And honoring that and wanting to say soft, gentle words, kind words to those that had recently deceased. Like I said, I had a sense that a lot of the dead didn't quite know they were dead yet. So that is part of my calendar. I also do like Hecate's feast day. Like I said earlier, sometimes I give honor to a Nana. There's no telling. Thinking who else have I? Diana, Care to Win, Aradia. Periodically I'll be like, oh, it's Aradia's feast day. And that changes. And then I also have days of remembrance. My grandmother's birthday is a day that is written in my book. And on my grandmother's birthday, I will set up my altar different. And then I have my Psalms. My book of Psalms. My grandma was a Southern Baptist, a primitive Baptist prayer healer, and the Psalms. And that's how I was introduced to it. And for that day, this is a book that I have. It is the Illuminated Book of Psalms. It's got pretty in it, but I just like it. It's a King David version of the Psalms, so it's not accurate. The translations aren't correct, but that doesn't matter. I know that. But I will lay the Psalms out, and for a day or two, I will come and read Psalms as a way of giving honor and connection to my grandmother. So, woo! We've talked about my calendar. Let's talk about your calendar now. Because this is about you figuring out, what do you want to celebrate this year? When do you feel the seasons of change? All right, and the first thing you need to do is go outside and stand in the field. And if I was one of those people that, went and made the fancy videos of me running through the fields with music in the background, now would be the time for me to have that little clip talking about creating, being inspired by what's in your natural environment. When do your trees start to bud? When certain flowers bloom? Or when does the first frost hit for you? I mean, I live in Charleston, South Carolina. We don't get that much. But, like, you're up north somewhere. I mean, one of our witches is up in Connecticut. She's got a whole different seasonal cycle than what I have. And that understanding that it's okay for us to have different dates for different things because we're in different ecosystems. I think of March, I think of clover, because my whole back area is covered in clover. I love it. And then it comes into bloom, and then all the bees come. And I love to sit in the clover, and you can hear the little bees buzz, 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 all around me. And there's just something so invigorating to me, so amazing that life is going on, and that busyness of the bees, Excuse me. And I will, in March, oftentimes I will put some of the fresh clover flowers. I'll make like the clover necklaces. You can make and sit there and make one, and I'll put it on my altar. And that is part of my celebration. And, I know my witchy friend in Connecticut is probably not putting clover on her altar in March. She's putting other things that, she has up there. She talks about she has pretty flowers. She gets like crocuses and sundrops. And we don't really get those down here. But tuning into your environment, all right, and your harvest. What's the big local harvest that you have? Here in the fall, the pecan trees, it's time to, give them a little shake and go rake up all the pecans. And there's just something of that fall's coming to me when I see that, when we start seeing the bags for sale where you can make pecan pie. And I know it's pecan and pumpkin pie. And I know that that's part of the, that whole fall going into the season of the dead time for me. And so the first thing you need to do is look at your local cycles. When is spring, summer, winter, fall? Which ones do you resonate with? Which ones make you sing and want to dance? It's that simple. All right? And like I said earlier, not every year is your calendar going to be the same, because I have, not every full moon do I dance around a bonfire. I have full moons where I'm like, I'm just fine. I'm going to sit here. Because I'm not feeling it. And I don't have to be obligated to it. And if I don't go dance around the bonfire under a full moon for one full moon night, it doesn't make me less than. It doesn't make me doing anything wrong. Honestly, I'm tuning into me, and that's what's important. And so think about your coming year. What are your highlights? What do you look forward to? And how would you like to celebrate it? You can have a picnic, invite some friends over, have a big harvest stew if that's what you're thinking of. If you're a crafty witch in the spring crafts or the fall crafts, so many ways you can do it. It's not about doing this ritual and standing there, with the 7 parts of a ritual where we're going to, we will cleanse the space, we will cast a circle, we will call the quarters, we will call the god and goddess, we will tell some myth and lore, and then we'll tell everybody goodbye. Again, like I said, that's within the Wiccan tradition, and I'm not in any way saying anything bad, I'm just saying that's what it's about, and don't feel like you have to be a part of it if you are not working within that tradition. A lot of times I know that the information out there, it's all very neo-pagan, very new agey type things, and we all shall do the Wheel of the Year. But if we get into the history of the Wheel of the Year, it's not ancient, it's not old, it's cobbled together with half myths. And the influences of it, if you want to go down that rabbit hole on the history of the Wheel of the Year, it's like, it works for those folks. But it's not some ancient thing. You're not doing what the pagans did before Christianity or anything like that, all right? It is modern. I don't know why I felt I needed to blurb all that out there. All right, we're on first step 1. Observe our local natural cycles around us. Think about the ones we resonate with. Write those down. Second, what are your personal and or cultural dates? All right? Do you have personal milestones? Do you have certain birthdays, anniversaries? And are there local events going on? When I lived in San Diego, where I'm thinking it was well within the Latino culture and everything. And so, the Day of the Dead was a very big thing. And everybody's celebrating it. I ended up celebrating it. I enjoyed it. I was really lucky. I got to go to the cultural center and hear people's stories and explaining it to me in more depth, and got to see the goddess of Guatemala, who was all in gold. Oh, it was so beautiful. I probably shouldn't say more because I really don't understand. I don't have enough comprehension. I'd like to really get into all of the detail, but because it was being observed local, because like everywhere, even at the grocery store, it was being observed, I learned about it through my community, through the local culture. So look at your local culture. For us, the azaleas are in bloom, and we have the big azalea festival, and that's when the farmers markets come out and everything. And I love that time of year, and I always make sure to go to a couple of the farmers markets that we have going on in springtime. It's just a way of seeing all of those little first crops, first flower type things, All right. And these key dates, that what are important, thinking about how do you want to celebrate them? Do you want to have a formal ritual? All right. Or do you want, to, like I said, a simple private moment where, you're just standing out there acknowledging it. Maybe light a candle and listen to a really good song and be happy about the moment. It's about connecting. That's the biggest thing when we talk about, our year of celebrations, is that we're present, we're connecting. They're meaningful to us. Not because we read it in a book that says that I'm supposed to do this, all right? And, another thing I know, like in the summertime, we typically do like a smaller bonfire. And then September's bonfire is like the bonfire to start the winter season. And we will, put extra things in it. And I just want that September bonfire to really blaze for some reason. And that's important to me. And that's something that I like to do. And I'm pretty consistent every year about doing that. And the other part of this, step number 4, let your calendar evolve. As you change, as your practice and your magic changes, so too will the dates that are important to you. That's why it's so important to write it down. Like you saw me, where I had my book where I could go back and I could look at it. I could see, several years of what I had been doing, the notes that I had wrote down, and how I was connecting. And I used that as a way to inspire me to create this video where you got to hear some of my personal notes, but I also used it as a way to help me inspire the coming year. In January, I will start looking at my date book and seeing, when is June 21st, all right? And what's going on during that time, and what would I like to do? I have decided for spring, this year we're going to be doing a tea party, a make your own tea. I'm inviting a lot of people to come out to the barn, and I'm going to set up some pretty tables, and I've got the teacups and the teapots. And we are going to make our own blends of tea. We're going to sit and enjoy it. And then I plan on having those cute little finger sandwiches and other cute little things that you put on the 3-tier tray, because I have several 3-tier trays. I love tea parties. But if I'm already thinking about what I'm going to be doing for the coming year and things in which I would like to, if I'm traveling anywhere, where I'm going to be going, who I'm going with, and things like that, where I look and I write it down. And I may not complete the year. I'm not going to sit and write a whole year out, but it's going to give me ideas, and it's going to start my calendar. And if this year, like I said earlier, I'm thinking, I have got to do Diana this year. I've got to do her feast day. I've been talking with Diana. I've said some prayers to Diana. This is the year of Diana's feast. Then I put that on my calendar. All right. And next year I may not be talking to Diana. I might be talking to Cardowin. I might be talking to Aradia. I might be talking to Anana. I might be talking to Hecate. I don't know. But that's every year being present, staying present. And how do you feel this year? Where is your calendar? And sitting down and writing out some notes. And if there's a couple of special full moons, I know a couple of years ago we had one of those blue moon, super moon, that the stars had aligned right, and we all figured it out. And it was like, ooh, we've all got to get together and do some spell work that night. That was on the calendar. And I keep wanting to, how important it is just to tune into you. Where are you at this year? And let your wheel of the year, your celebrations reflect that. Do not do what everyone else is doing just because you feel like you need to fit in. Honey, we are witches. We don't fit in, nor should we ever. All right? Do you, boo. And set your calendar out and what makes you celebrate. All right. So I think I've given enough of my rant on the folk witch's wheel of the year, and the fact that every folk witch you talk to is going to give you a different wheel of the year, and how important that is for you to develop your own. And so, of course, I want to hear from all of you out there. I'm going to tell you. Leave it in the comments below. How do you celebrate this season? Do you follow traditional holidays, honor local cycles, or do you do something entirely unique? I really want to hear your Wheel of the Year seasonal magic celebrations below. And of course, if you found inspiration in this video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe, and if you think somebody out there could benefit from listening to me ramble, share it with them. All right? And where am I at on my notes? Okay, I finished all my notes off, witches. I did it. And so with that said, witches, get out there, fly those brooms, have a bright, blessed day. And as always, amen, blessed be, ashe, and ebabo. The beginning of the video where I sit and start getting my head straight is at the end of the video. So I do periodically have these ramblings where I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and post that. Some of my other ramblings, I'm like, no, we're not posting that one. Can't do that. But I sit here just for a couple minutes, look at my notes, think about what I'm getting ready to say. Sort of set the intention. I love these sprays. When I was a young witch, which was like 40 years ago, we didn't get cute little spray bottles like this. This was just such a whole new thing. Oh, yeah. I just love the way it changes. It's amazing. The aromatherapy, the aroma energy. Oh, that smells so good. The aroma energy. And just shifting your own headspace. Here, give some to Eloise. Yes, the chicken's name is Eloise. She has traveled back and forth from California to South Carolina too many times to even count anymore. I take her on board when I fly, because I get a little nervous on the landings and the takeoff. So I sit there with my chicken and I stroke her. It's almost a stimming behavior. I like the way she feels. And I can just sort of sit here and squeeze my stuffed chicken and remind myself that this airplane will land and that this airplane will take off. The funniest story I want to tell about Eloise is like when I take her through security, I have people talk to this chicken. Like they'll ask me her name and they'll be like, "Oh, aren't you so pretty? Oh, I love your chicken." And I'm just sitting there chuckling because I'm like, that's a stuffed chicken, right? It ain't real. But it's just quite fascinating, some of the responses that she gets from people when we were moving stuff around. Somehow she made her way to the love seat here, and I think it's sort of nice having her. I'm not sure when I'm gonna fly back out to California. I do still have folks out there, so I am planning on coming. I know there's a couple of y'all, you're like, "What did you just say?" I am coming to visit you. I loved California. I enjoyed my time there. But for me, the reality was that home was calling. How do you say that? Where I'm just like, the dirt said it was time to come home. I am very proud of being a Southerner. I got folks, one side of my family line goes all the way back to an actual land grant of King Charles, meaning that they got, before America was America type thing. They were part of the original pioneer settlers before there were colonists, without getting all into that. But, my relatives, my folks have been buried in this dirt for, 400 years now. So it very much calls me home. And I've been so blessed over the course of my life to travel. I actually lived in Hawaii. I lived on the island of Oahu in the town of Aiea for a short time, just over a year. I got to live in Hawaii. It was amazing, wonderful, but I reached that point of my dirt's calling me home. It's time to go home. And in all of my travels, I've been up north, above the Mason-Dixie line. Yes, I went there. I was actually in Massachusetts, West Stockbridge, Massachusetts, and I got to spend time up there. A beautiful, amazing place, wonderful people, but reached that point of my dirt's calling me home. And I know for a lot of you folks, you're like, "We don't really have dirt." And I'm like, "Yeah, you do. You got the dirt you stand on." If you don't have that sense of, my ancestors, a lot of us here in America, we're like, "Oh, I took a DNA test. It says I'm predominantly Irish, so I'm now going to do Celtic magic." And I find that fascinating because I am Irish. Actually, my DNA, I'm Irish and Scots Irish. And I did get to go to Ireland. I got to go to Tyrone, Ireland, where my great-grandfather, the homestead, the hovel hut, and see it. I was also in Tullamore, Ireland, in County Cavan, and I got to go to Cabra Castle, and I stayed there for a couple of nights. It's supposed to be Ireland's most haunted castle, and I stayed in the most haunted room because I requested it. No, nothing happened. I'm still waiting for something to happen. When I go to New Orleans, I stay at Hotel Olivier, which is supposedly one of the most haunted hotels in New Orleans. I stay in the most haunted room in New Orleans. It's been, I think, 3 different psychic shows have featured it, and I always get a good rest, you know. I'm still waiting for that experience to happen, and I'll keep booking places with, okay, I'm here. But back to when I went to Ireland, I was so grateful I got to see my ancestors' place. I felt like I was visiting family, but it wasn't my dirt. My dirt's here in America. Again, even in Ireland, I loved it. It was to connect to that family history, that family ancestry. But when I got on the airplane, that sense of, I'm coming home. And that made me realize that for a lot of Americans here, we don't have this sense of America, you know. We haven't learned all of the good stories. The stories of our families, the stories of our towns, the stories of our communities, the stories of the region we live in. And I think that's where the disconnect is. You know, I am not an Irish witch. I am of Irish descent who is an American witch. And I think that sometimes that's a hard place for a lot of us to be, especially many of the Americans, you know. You grew up in Cincinnati and then you moved over, you know, to Detroit, and then from there you end up over, I'm telling a friend's story, in San Diego, and she was like, I don't have a sense of where I'm from. And that really got me thinking, and I was like, well, you know, your family came here to America so that you could have a better opportunities, better life, better education, all of that. But our folks, immigrants, you know, came here hoping for a little better. And that really, that's all it's about, is that doing well, doing a little better, not getting caught up in, you know, I'm of German descent, so I must do German magic. I'm of Italian descent, so I must do Italian magic. Those are for the Germans to do. Those are for the Italians to do. We're in America. We are in a funky gumbo, and sometimes it's hard to get a sense of connection. And the best way I can tell folks to do that, learn the stories. Learn the stories, you know, if you have interesting stories in your family so that you can have an ancestral altar. Learn the stories of your town. Learn the stories of your community. Learn the stories of your region, you know, and put your feet in the dirt there. And it will take time. It's not something that just happens. And for those of you out in the Midwest, because this is what she's talking, Cincinnati don't have no magic. And I was like, oh yes, it does. It's got lots of magic. You just got to go looking for it. Is understanding who the founders are, the people that live there. When we get in the middle of the country, we're straight up in those pioneers, those settlers, those farmers, you know, people who really work the soil. And, you know, to embrace that, to, again, look at your region. And I think it's a journey that as Americans, we're still learning. I'm still learning it, you know. I was talking that I'm a proud Southerner, and that comes with a lot of baggage, straight up, you know, especially as a white woman. Lots of baggage. You know, it doesn't make, I'm not going to apologize for anything anybody did. My folks are, like I said, Irish, Scots-Irish. We were poor dirt farmers. But, you know, that only 3% of the folks, white folks in the South actually owned enslaved people. The rest of us were dirt-ass poor. And I don't have a sense of guilt for what people did in the past. I do have a sense of guilt for what's being done right now. because we should know better. And ultimately, what I feel about myself is it's for me to learn the stories of this beautiful funky gumbo here, especially here, low country, and to give credit where credit's due, to make sure that I know where my magic comes from. I know the sources I'm drawing upon, and I make sure that I'm giving honor, reverence, and respect to them. And I know I'm flipping from subject to subject, but this is what gets my brain going so that I can sit here and shoot a video where I sit here and I talk out loud to myself about things, and I end up with some great conversations. That's when I started recording them, because a couple of y'all are like, I like it when you ramble. And I'm thinking, had I known that, I could have just done a whole channel on Taryn rambles. And there's no telling where Taryn's going to go. And I may not even finish off a thought, because I'm just slowly waking up the brain cells, I guess. And I'm going to end this segment because I am going to begin my video. I'm reading a great book, Magick, A History from Alchemy to Witchcraft from the Ice Age to Present. Chris Gosden. I hope y'all can see this. Yes, it is a little bit of an academic book, but OM, folks, OM. When people are like, what, I want to know the advanced stuff. What do I read next? Where I feel like, because the witchcraft community is one giant book club. This is really a great book getting into the history of magic, understanding it's global. And how from Ice Age to present, how magic interplayed within the sciences and within religion. Because both science and, religion's like, oh, we're afraid of magic. Science won't say that magic does or does not exist. And it takes that intersection and really presents it well. I just love his writing style. Like I said, it is a little high academic, but I think at the same time, it's very readable for those of you who would like. And so with that, I'm going to flip around now and I'm going to shoot this video. Thank you all for watching till the end. I appreciate, thank you for your comment, your feedback, your support, for all of it. I truly believe that the majority of y'all watching are the next generation of witches and other interesting magical beings. And I hope I give you just a little bit of inspiration, encouragement, and empowerment, and maybe a couple of tools. And also, you are the next generation, all right? There was a generation before me, and it's... we need to pass it on. We need to continue it. That's how magic's been staying alive. And it's so wonderful in today's world that I can do it via video and I get to talk to people all around the world. And so I just thank y'all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And with that said, get out there. I'm going to go do this video now. See y'all later. Bye.